Hello, namaste. My name is Rekha and I'm your host for this session. A very warm welcome to all of you. I hope you have had an enriching and enjoyable day so far. Now, we recommend that you turn off all distractions to enjoy fully this great conversation for which we are here. So, what are we here for? We all know how words hold a lot of weight. They have the power to hurt and the power to heal. What we say and how we say it can have an enormous impact on those around us. I'm sure we have all had experience of this as initiators and recipients, right? This session will focus on the first relationship we have in our lives, parent and child, and the challenges that parents and children face in their relationships with each other. We will see how listening with love and speaking from the heart can help strengthen these relationships by building others instead of tearing them down, no matter what situation we find ourselves in, calm or stressful, charged or joyful. In the session, we will also hear and see how professional coaching can help parents listen with empathy and curiosity to build a deeper relationship with their children. To take us through this powerful possibility, we have an awesome panel of speakers with rich and diverse backgrounds. Let me introduce them to you. Our first panelist, Iffat Yasmin, is India's leading biodynamic craniosacral therapist and a lactation consultant. Wow, I definitely needed my notes to get that right. So, Iffat applies these sciences into life coaching, inner child healing, and parenting. Her approach stems from the fundamental truth that human organism is complete and self-regulatory, and treatment and counseling approach is by deep listening and true empathy to mind, body, and spirit rather than by intervention. This so resonates with me, Iffat.
Yes.
Her key research interests are birth trauma and its long term impact throughout lifetime, both on emotional and physiological level. Ifat is also an international speaker, an author, and an award winning filmmaker. Talk about diversity. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Ifat.
I feel honored. Thank you so much, Rekha.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Satish DeSa. Welcome, Satish.
Hi.
Coming from a family of teachers, Satish escaped the family occupation, making his way through to the top of Indian advertising, shaping stories into ads and TV commercials. His stories found a new audience with the birth of his daughter. Fatherhood made him a better mentor and boss, and saw him trained to be a teacher, thus coming full circle. Today, he brings all his skills together at WagTales Childhoods. Thrilled to have you here, Satish.
Same here. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Our next panelist and panel moderator is Bhavani Jois. Welcome, Bhavani. Bhavani is a respected leader in the field of internal audit and risk management with over 24 years of experience. She has recently embarked on a journey as an executive and leadership coach and trainer. She leverages her experience as an NLP practitioner to speak on topics of resilience, self management, and leadership. Bhavani is a proud mother of 5 children, including 2 stepchildren, with an age gap of 24 years between the eldest and the youngest. And to crown that, she is further blessed with the title of grandma to a 2.5-year-old. Awesome. A very warm welcome to you, Bhavani. Like she is playing so many roles in her life, in this session too, Bhavani is playing multiple roles of a speaker, a moderator, and a coach. This is such a super impressive trio. I'm sure we are all going to have a very enriching time listening to them exploring this wonderful topic through different lenses. Before I hand over to Bhavani, I personally have an invitation for all of you. I invite you to listen with curiosity, invite your inner child, and have loads of fun. Over to you, Bhavani.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to the ICF India and to Rekha. Thank you for pulling all of this together. The session we have today is going to take the three of us speaking today. We'll just take you through our experiences of listening with empathy and compassion throughout the years of a child, from their infancy all the way to their adolescent years, structured in a way that really shows how much, as parents, we have to evolve our ways of communicating and listening to children as they evolve and find their place in the world, as they form their values, their sense of self, their passion and their behaviors emerge from early years to middle years to early teens and then young adults. The way we structured this today is Afat will take us through her experiences of communication and listening with empathy and compassion in the very early years of a child. And then Satish will come in and share his experiences of the middle years. And then I will then share my experiences of how it is to actually deal with and communicate to and listen empathetically to teenagers. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Afat to share her experiences. Afat, over to you.
Thank you so much, Bhavani. I mean, I feel privileged to actually share the stage with both of you, to be able to explore many things that we often, think about much later once we have finished our main adult years of, trying to do the livelihood and get into a midlife. And midlife crisis really brings up a lot of things for us. So, from my experience, what I wanted to share was very often we think that parenting begins well into after infancy stage, which is about 2 years. When we feel like, okay, there's communication happening when the child has started to talk, and then move on from there to the toddler years and ahead into the childhood. But the research that I have been seeing and the work that I've been doing for the last more than a decade now, it's overwhelming to see that there is so much research coming in the last 30 years that's talking about what are the imprints and the communication, the field of communication that happens right from conception. And when we talk about conception, we're talking about welcoming a soul into the womb of the mother. So that is often not really looked at more than the fact that yes, there is a progeny that's going to happen because there are two souls that have come together. But very often we don't realize that there is an environment that we are creating at that point to welcome this soul. And everybody, no matter if it's an infant or a child, and young adult or an adult, or maybe in the old age, we all have the same needs to be seen, to be felt, and to be heard. And this is something that happens right in the beginning. And how do we know that? During conception and pregnancy, we're starting to see there is a lot of evidence that's coming in, that people start to share that they have got memories of things that have not happened in their cognitive conscious mind of being a young child or an adult, but way before that. And they seem to understand how that's happening. And then when this information has started to be gathered into a collective experience and research through the Journal of Pre and Perinatal Psychology, we are starting to see an enormous amount of evidence that shows that the imprints come right from the time of the womb. And I can remember a small example that I can share is, there was this a young woman. She was about 40 years old, and she had come in for issues that were related with her periods. For example, she didn't have proper periods, and she had hit menopause very, very early in life. And for some reason, she felt that this was not something that felt natural to her, although there was no clinical understanding of it. She felt that this was not natural. And when we went into the session, and there was an imprint that came up for her during the session that made her feel that there was violence to the womb in her perception of the session. And she realized that this was the womb of her mother, and the mother had gone through a very difficult time trying to accept this fetus in the womb because it was out of wedlock. And that experience was etched into her psyche throughout her lifetime, and she did not know how to bring an understanding of it because no one told her about it until she went up to her mother and spoke about it to her. And that's when her mother shared that I couldn't bring you into this life with full acceptance because of the reasons that I was set in a circumstance. And that shows a very deep understanding about how the psychology really builds the mental health, and our feeling to be seen and heard starts right from the beginning of conception, throughout pregnancy, and then right into perinatal stage where there is mothering through breastfeeding. And we're learning about boundaries of relationships, we are learning about connecting with each other and setting the stage to be able to take on the world. And this all happens at a stage we feel that there is nothing but just a physiological need of diaper changes and feeding, but that doesn't seem to be true. And everyone so this there is an understanding in our culture especially, which is called the garb sanskar, which I highly advocate because it allows us to be able to connect with that growing fetus in an embryo, and then the fetus, to be able to welcome that little being right from the beginning into the arms of acknowledgement, I would say. Because one thing I've realized working with not just infants, especially with birth trauma, where the imprints of the birth, which is I'll talk about it just in a minute, but the fact is that this feeds into what how we play out our life later on, and what it plays up in our relationships, not just during our growing years, but into adulthood and even the transition at the end of our life. It comes back. So it does not leave us because it is something that, you know, brings in together, it builds together. And when I'm talking about the birth here, um, birth has a space to really shape what we will become and how we present our potentials as a soul that needs to, the gifts that it has throughout lifetime. Whether it's relationships, or whether it's what you play out in your life in terms of your professional life, and how you interact with each other, and the real purpose of your life, how you paint your life through that purpose, really happens through the process of birth. And the more gentler, more supportive environment during birth, if we need to as a society do a 1000 steps to take care of that stage of the woman and the parent and the unit of the family at that point, we have the potential to change and to heal the world from many, many social issues that we seem to be facing. So that's my core interest. And I've been looking at many of the things that happen later on in terms of violence, in terms of things that are destructive in terms of society, whether it's economical, financial, political, any of those major issues that we feel, they all go back to how the birth was being supported at very, very early stages. And we're seeing that to being having a tipping point. So my asking for consideration for the audience who's here, who's listening in to us today, is truly to be to see if there is a way to reconnect back to what the nature intended it to be, to have safe and supported birth. And that obviously cannot be done by just the individuals who feel the need for it, but I think it requires a collective community to make it happen. So that's very, very important at a stage where we see more than about 70 to 80% cesarean sections or interventions during birth, either using a forceps or vacuum, or emergency cesarean sections, and all of these have impacts throughout lifetime. And that needs to be heard, because the baby who's coming into the womb and into the world through the birth process of birth and passage of birth, it's asking is, can I be seen, can I be heard? Can I be felt in an environment that is lovingly accept, bringing us in more than intervention, and perhaps even, sort of violent space that we can see sometimes that it occurs, unless it's a life saving kind of a situation. If there's a possibility for us to prevent that, we must in all ways.
Thank you very much, Afat, for sharing that. As a mother, I can relate completely to what you shared, and I, understand so how important it is for that entire communication and that support that has to start from the very beginning, all throughout the pregnancy and immediately after. Thank you so much for sharing that. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Satish to share what happens next, Satish, when when we are in the middle years and there's so much play and so much creativity and naughtiness, I guess, also that comes up with children, and how parents need to communicate with empathy and compassion at that stage. Over to you, Satish.
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you, Effort. It's always so calming to hear you speak. I feel like, it really kind of, just your voice. I think there's the magic in your voice. And,
Thank you so
whatever you were
much.
saying, I was listening and I was, you know, my notes, I've made my notes and we've had a discussion earlier also. And I don't think anything changes about the child with age. But only I feel like, the lens which we look at children keeps on changing. And I'm sure when Bhavani also speaks, I've seen that, that our expectations of the children change, and our language, it starts with our language because expectation says, don't behave like a child, you know, from there itself. So, it's looked down upon to actually be childish. And, uh, and even as you grow up, you see that their bodies change, but you still you try treating them like adults, but inside they are still those souls taking shape, finding form, finding their space in this universe, not just in our world. And how are we how are we looking at them? So when I look at them, I see children, they have this special quality, and that is what I work with. They look at everybody and everything with very special eyes, not special eyes which we are so used to, but the special eyes where everything is special. And when I work with parents, I crack this joke because for us specialization is so important, but we should look at saying the special eyes is more important than that. And when we look at our children also, are we looking at them with the same way? Because with my children, I just feel here is a space which is non-judgmental, and it's such a pure space. And if I see the world, even my watchman, okay, or the fish seller is judging me. ये इतना लेट क्यों आता है, इसका बाल इतना लंबा क्यों है, वो ऐसा शर्ट क्यों पहनता है, ऐसा चप्पल क्यों पहनता है, शॉर्ट पैंट क्यों पहनता है, लॉन्ग पैंट क्यों पहनता है. Even if you go and your colleagues, your wife, everybody is judging each other. But when I work with children and my own children, I just feel like there is this generosity of being where they are just non-judgmental, as in like, ab jo bhi ho, kaise bhi ho, here is my full attention. You have something to give me and I will receive with full gratitude. And I look at that and saying is that is a learning. If I have learned anything, it is being with children. And 12 years ago, I will complete 12 years in December. When I had my first child, I felt that was a shift in my entire being, in who I am, and, the way I look at life, the way I was a boss. I was a horrible boss, though my team doesn't agree with that. They're saying you are much better than the others. But when I look at it, I'm saying that I could have been, more forgiving. And as my child got older, I started looking at, as communication, because that is my job in advertising, communication and advertising. And I looked at everything, all the way I'm communicating with people. Why is it so, I have to make people feel conscious about themselves to communicate something? Either make them feel guilty, or, put some fear in their mind, or make them feel like, less about themselves. Aapka badan ka badbu, or if you don't do this, you will face some loss. Advertising was that kind of communication was happening in advertising, and I saw that was the same thing which traditionally also I have inherited from my own parents and my own society. The way I was made to behave, you act like an adult, then you're a good child. That is what. And I started looking and saying that, is there some way that, and I saw slowly children are forgetting how it is to be a child, because adults have forgotten what it was to be a child. That somehow we have become wonder blind. The term I keep on using, where when I see a child, they look at even a small kind of, a dewdrop with so much of wonder. They look at a seed and saying, hey, ye to jadoo hai. When we look at a seed, because maybe science has made us wonder blind, but when you look at a seed, we don't see how it can become a fetus, how it can become a child, how it can grow into a possibility for the world. When we see a seed, we don't see the tree, but a child, that magic is present to them. And I really feel like, that if we forget being a parent, but if we start looking at the world like the way children do, we will have more respect for children. And I think that is the starting point of parenting. And that is also the ending point. If there is no respect, you cannot be a great parent, you cannot be a great coach, you cannot be a great boss. In relationships, you will just be somebody who is looking down, condescending. You will never have great relationships if there's no respect. And I think that is what we are forgetting. When we come as parents, we look at it saying is, I want to have this child follow something I have in my head. I want to have this child, to flaunt this child, to show them as a performing monkey, dekho usko itna marks mila. But can we have respect saying this child is whole and complete? We only have to facilitate the journey of the child. And yes, sometimes we think in their best interest, but maybe the best interest is also opening the cocoon too early and helping them. So my plea is to parents and all of us is saying like, no, can we give those children those first 7 years of their life as children? Because they will not get time later on to be children. There'll be always somebody saying like, Are you're behaving like a child. In fact, I take great pride when people tell me I'm so childish. I think that is what has helped me in my career, and also the way I work right now, being open-minded to people, to things, to experiences, accepting it, willing to fail, embracing people's situations and saying is, let's see what happens, diving deep, keeping my curiosity alive. If we can all keep that sense of wonder alive. And Effort shared something very beautiful as she was sharing. All of it was beautiful, but just something which was resonating with me also, which was part of what I wanted to share, is that if each of us right now, I would like each of us as adults to, maybe take a moment. I think I have 3 minutes more, so I can spare that, 30 seconds for each of y'all. And if you look back in your life and if you all see what is the one thing that you all are chasing, each of us are chasing, whether it is fame, whether it is, love, mostly it is love, whether it comes as fame and adulation, whether it comes as respect, whether it comes as achieving something in life. Most of us are just, actually just trying to get love in different forms. Whether it is, that people, if I have lots of money, if I am rich, I'll be more loved, I'll be respected. But end of the day, and where is that need coming from? If we look, it is coming from somewhere in our childhood, that gap was there. And rest of our lives, we just try to kind of fill that gap or, meet that need. Wo jo bhook hai, that hunger is never fulfilled. And we try various things. I've seen in relationships also, me also, how I've tried to figure out that. If we just look back, and when I look back at my own life, I don't have any scientific research, but Effort, your words really, helped me corroborate what I was thinking. Saying, when I look at children, I see that there is 3 things which they need: the gaze, the touch, and the voice of the parent addressing them with love. And I just look at my children and I keep on reminding myself is, when am I giving them all 3? Because I'm always giving them instructions, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. When am I addressing them with love and saying, Zach, come here, sit on my lap, get them that touch, or look at them without looking at my phone, or not being even 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And that's what I've realized. Storytelling has helped me to actually connect with my children, where it's giving me an opportunity to communicate with them through stories. And that is what, as an image, that is what I bring to them as an image, as stories. So we have conversations at home using stories. They tell me a story about their day, and now they're communicating better. So they'll tell me how their day went without a story. But the base of it was created on communicating through stories, and not intellectual conversations with them when they were younger on how was your day, they could not articulate, but I used to tell them a story, and then they used to tell me a story back, and from that I used to deduce how their day went. So I would love to, delve a bit more on that. But maybe what I would like to leave all of us is that, that if we can give our children those first 7 years of their life to be children, I think, the rest of their lives will be really sorted. Let them play, bring them, present to them whatever you have to present, whether it is instructions, whether it is studies, whether it is science. Can it be presented to them as images and as part of play, and not making play, like something which is bad, not demonizing play, not demonizing that mischief, not demonizing children for being children. I think that is something which we can talk about empathy and compassion, but for me, that is what brings it into action. Yeah, that's it. I have lots more to share, but I'm just curbing myself.
Thank you, Satish. And again, sometimes I wish I could rewind the clock, because everything that you just shared, I wish I could do for my, go back and do again with my kids when they were in their middle years. But as we have it, we are where we are, and now we have to look at what's next. So thank you for sharing that. Very, very deep experiences that you've got. So I'll take a moment now just to share my experiences in dealing with the next phase, when they are more or less forming their individuality. They have their values and their behaviors and their attitudes. The little person is becoming, almost an early adult, and that's kind of when it gets the toughest, I think, because I think that's when even maybe some kind of play works, but it's a lot more of that deeper understanding that individual, that child, for who they are. And I think my experiences have taught me. So when I as Rekha shared, I've got two stepchildren who are now well into their 20s and 30s, and my younger three are 19, 15, and 11, and it was I have evolved as a parent, because in the beginning I was kind of like Satish said, a lot of you try and tell them what to do, then you try and persuade them, and you try and convince them, and then you maybe lose your patience, and raise your voice. And that was how I was in the early days, maybe even so now, but definitely my stepdaughter will vouch that I have changed. She was like asking me, how can you be so generous and kind nowadays to the younger ones? You were so much more harsh with us. But I think for me, discovering that telling and advising doesn't always work happened a little later for me. And I think that's where, if I were to share my experience, understanding the child as an individual with their own value system is the first stage, because often where we have difference of agenda or conflict arises is when we try and impose our views and our advice and want things to happen in a certain way, and forget that they may be completely in contradiction with what they want. And a very recent thing that happened between me and my son, for example, was I was like, he's in his degree, and I'm like, make a decision about your master's, and I'm like, you need to think about it, because for me, one of my value systems was about financial security. I needed to know that I had enough money to send him to whichever university or abroad, and for him that was not a strong value. For him, it was not about financial security. That at his age of 19, he says, you're asking me to make a decision about something that's going to happen in 2 years, maybe 3 years time. I can only think 6 months ahead. And because you keep asking me this, I feel pressure to respond in a way that will satisfy you. And that was a moment of reality for me to say, actually, it was my agenda, my needs, my values that were driving this conversation. I needed security financially to make sure I could do what was necessary for him, but failed to appreciate that his values were about being in the moment. For him, he said, look, I need to do what I'm doing right now perfectly. I cannot think about something that's happening 2 years from now, even 6 months from now. And I think as parents, we often have this situation arising all the time, where the child is thinking and listening and speaking from a different value system than the parent, and taking a moment to pause and actually really reflect. and increase our self-awareness about that is one definite way of increasing our ability to listen with empathy. I think the second thing that for me I felt was this wave of emotion. With children, there's an integral part of our lives, and a lot of emotion is involved when communicating with children, and that emotion comes as a cloud, and then we see everything from that filter. So if you experience anger, when we experience anger, we see everything from that lens. Or like Satish said, the lenses keep changing. The child is the same. And I think that one of the shapes that lens takes is the emotions that we as parents have. And so my 15-year-old will say, look, when I say, you're being disrespectful, speak more politely. He says, can you just refresh your words and think about what you just said to me? Wouldn't you call that disrespectful? So there is that kind of dialogue which I have with my children. And I said, yes, if I was to receive that dialogue from somebody, then I think I would find that disrespectful too. So the ability to just pause and appreciate which emotion is playing up. Is it worry, or is it disappointment, or whatever it is, and then taking a moment to just think about how can you work around that emotion that is your emotion, and looking at it from their emotion. Maybe they feel disappointment, maybe they feel anger. So I think if we can understand the emotion at play between in communicating and trying to listen with empathy, that's another big win for a parent. And I think the third big element is intent. I think while as a coach, I always believe I bring my best self, but in my mind, if I'm thinking that, no, I want him or her to do this, then they see it. I mean, we always say in coaching, non-judgmental space. But if our intent is to achieve an outcome that we want, then automatically the child sees it. He said, no, you're not listening to me. You're saying the right things, but actually you want me to do what you want me to do. So there's this, and so you're thinking, I'm saying, I'm being polite, I'm listening empathetically, I'm being compassionate, but I'm not getting the result I want. I think the biggest thing that is at play there is the intent with which we are communicating is coming through our facial expression and our body language, and that is being sensed by the child as the actual true intent of the communication, and not what the words are saying. So another big thing that I think as parents we need to look out for is those. Now there's so much more that I can think of from my own experience, and Satish, you pointed out about touch. That's another interesting thing. Each person's touch quotient. Different people like different amounts of touch, and I have that experience with my daughter who loves hugs, and she's like, put away a laptop, look at me into my eyes, and then say hug and say goodnight. That's a routine that is established over the last 2 years. But I am not a very touchy person, so I was like, okay, that's but now that I've made a promise to her, because that's her need of communication. She wants me to focus and give her that hug as a routine. I think we are building a new ability and new awareness about ourselves as to whether we're doing it for ourselves or for them. And so I think parents who say, no, I don't hug, are doing it for themselves. But if the child needs it, then the child needs it. So I think, again, a lot of self-awareness and introspection is needed to make sure we are bringing our best selves, not for us, but for them as parents. And if that means raising our self-awareness, and if that means talking to somebody to see what's not working, then I think that's where, for me, coach has really played a role. I've blessed with the privilege of having, being able to work with coaches who have held the mirror up for me as I've discussed some of these topics with them, and to help me raise my own self-awareness. And I also think that coaches come in all shapes and forms, in the form of friends, family, likes of Satish and Effort, who maybe just reflecting back. So my daughter said, you keep saying this again and again to my son. She's just an observer, and he keeps saying the same thing back to you. Maybe there's something there. So I wasn't realizing that, but somebody observing a conversation may. So I think a coach can come in a structured conversation. A coach can also come from people who are willing to risk rejection, by the parent, but willing still to share what they observe, because what we observe as a third party often is not seen by the parent in a conversation with the child. So I think I would invite all parents in this community group to welcome the feedback of those the loved ones nearest and dearest around you, who say, you're saying it this way, or you're doing it this way, or being aggressive, and not take it as finger pointing, because I think I have come to realize that reflection back to me has played a very significant role in increasing my self-awareness. So there's a lot more, like all of the speakers have said, there's a lot more we can share. But these are a few of my thoughts around dealing with adolescents and early adults as they find their way through and grow up, and so that you can build that relationship and be their friend even when they have become adults. I think that's a very important phase. A lot of relationships break because that early adult years are not dealt with respect for the individuals that they are becoming. Those are my thoughts. So with that, I'd like to just take a few minutes for us to have maybe a few discussion points. Rekha,
Yeah,
over to you.
I was just thinking there are some interesting questions that have come. So maybe we can just take a few of them right now before you connect the dots, Bhavani. And
Sure.
also where we have a coaching demo. So there is a common thread that is coming up, which as I'm reading the questions, some of people are asking for tips on how to talk to adult children or adolescents, and whether they should be hiring a coach or should the parents themselves be coaching. So whoever would like to take that up.
I'll probably take that, Rekha, because so I've stayed away from coaching my children because I think I cannot hold a non-judgmental space, even if I really tried. So I think it would be great. It would be great if parents feel they need to find a coach for their child. That would be a great thing to do. I think it gives them a safe space. But I also believe that listening with empathy to the children, a bit along the lines that we just spoke, actually really understanding what they are feeling and what their values are, is half the battle won. In being understood, for the child to be understood. I think often the biggest conflict happens is because the child or the young adult doesn't feel understood. And I know that firsthand, often enough. But a coach does help, because within safe circles, I have had my kids exposed to coaching, and I think they found it very beneficial.
Right.
If I can add something there, Rekha, is that okay?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I think what the kind of realizations that we have with our children is that, like Bhavani mentioned very rightly, that it's very difficult to have a very non-judging space, especially in very, very close relationships. And the reason being, what I have noticed is that there is a very, very small or very, very fragile kind of a line, the difference between validation and acknowledgement. So very often we feel that the way to welcome a person with their thoughts and ideas and whatever they want to bring into the conversation is often just validating them. But true acknowledgement is not validation. It is about being still holding the ground and the boundary to the conversation, to allowing that hearing and listening to happen without having to validate of what they bring in to that conversation or their experience or their circumstance that they are in, which means that a person may be doing something that as a choice that they are doing in their life may not be the best choices they are picking up. But if you validate that, that becomes that's really not parenting, right? It's because you're allowing the thread of the choice that they have made to become more cemented into their life and what they will lead into their life later on. But if you stay in the space of acknowledgement, you're saying, okay, I hear you say So when I use that word, I hear you, it's a very powerful way of holding space with the boundary, that it does not mean that I am okay with it, or the fact that you have made a choice is okay for you, but accept that this is how it is. So I
Yeah.
just wanted to bring that thought in here.
Beautiful, beautiful distinction between acknowledgement and validation. Thanks, Ifat, for that. And also respecting the boundaries of relationships, which you talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, some of the questions are around the same. How do we talk to teenagers, and how do we get attention from teenagers, especially, when they are so busy with other things these days?
Can I share about that a little bit?
Yes, please.
Because sometimes we start digging the well when we are thirsty. So I really believe that if the parents who have younger children, if we create a space for communication right that time, then the communication, it might not be 100% like 100% this thing, but usually we realize कि यार अभी ये बात नहीं कर रहे. There's no safe space to share what I feel, and that maybe can be rooted at a very young age. And that's why when I work with parents, I also tell them, like, working with a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, if you keep a space for conversation, but the thing is that अरे क्या बात कर रहे हैं उसके साथ. But if, like, for example, with my daughter now, she loves chatting, but I realize, every night I used to sit down and tell her story, and I feel like, that was a safe space. Or at a table also while eating food, I used to be chatting with my wife, and then slowly they started joining the conversation. And that conversation, I hope, she's 12 years old, I hope that, that space where she comes and she tells her brother also, it's okay, you can tell them, they are not going to hit you or punish you or whatever. So she puts that confidence in them. So at least we say that that safe space, so maybe it can start earlier. And all is not lost, but maybe Bhavani can give some idea about even working with the teenagers. But for me, if we can put in that time even right now, it will help us because it might be too late to do anything later on. Yeah.
Sure. So, Bhavani, you want to add something there, or we can move on and we'll look at the remaining questions later.
Probably just one point, it's never too late to do something together with the child at any age. It's almost like you should have dates with your children, and one-on-one. If you have more than one kid, do something that they really love. I haven't done it for a while. I used to. Time to a good point Satish has made. Just find a way to connect on things that they enjoy. I think
Yeah.
is really important. Of course, starting early is always the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I just wanted to add a point there, if that's okay with
Sure.
yeah. I've realized that it's been 47 years of my life, and I realized way into after being 40 is, what we truly miss is the best way to parent is really connecting together as parents. That partnership is the key turn in according to me. You can be a mother, you can be the best father, but you cannot be a parent until you're unit together as a team. And that changes the entire trajectory of life for anybody, because what we look for is how much love and affection and respect that parents have with each other. That changes how I look at my life and what my lens is going to be.
So true. Thanks.
Beautiful.
Thanks
Yeah.
for that
So
mention.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Satish.
Very
Very,
eye
very
opening.
beautiful.
Yeah. Very eye opening. Yeah. Yes, Bhavani, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Rekha. So, moving on from this panel discussion, we would now do a short demo of how coaching can support a parent in addressing things that they would like to focus on, in particularly in communication with their children. So I'd like to now, just before moving on, I'd like to just summarize what efforts shared and what Satish has shared and what I've shared around the different challenges of parenting and the different nuances that we need to look for in terms of communicating with our children is something that ideally should start early, and if we are at that stage, now is the time, because if your child is at that stage, now is the time. If not, I think definitely a self-awareness reflection of what happened for us at that stage in our children's life and what can we do now about it, is definitely the next best thing, in order to build the kind of relationship and communication and bond that we want with our children. And I think also we all play another role in our lives, in that we support other parents, right? We're constantly in society supporting other parents, and I think we have a role to play there as well, with the increased knowledge that we have of what's possible, to help them realize where they can make a difference in their communication with children. So it's not just our children, it's other parents in our community who need the support to help build that strong communication and relationship with their children. So I'll thank Afat and Satish for now, and we'll come back for some Q&A after the short demo session. Thank you, Afat and Satish.
Thank you.
I'd like to now invite to the stage Priyanka, who has volunteered kindly to be a coachee for this coaching demo. Hey, Priyanka.
Hi,
And thank
good
you
evening.
for me. Yeah, thank you
so
for making it today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So Priyanka, we will probably just take the next 20 to 25 minutes to have a short coaching demo. Thank you very much for volunteering to participate in this. And before we start, I'd like to just state that while we both know confidentiality is really important, I think today's session is being heard by the audience in this session, and the recording of this session will be made available to those who have registered for the conclave. I hope you're okay with that.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Priyanka. So I'm not sure how much of the session you've heard, but the topic, as you know, was around listening with empathy and compassion as parents. And so this demo is just to showcase how coaching can help parents navigate through, what they would like to achieve in terms of better relationships with their children. With that note, if you could just dive straight into it, what would you like to focus on or discuss in our conversation today, Priyanka?
Sure. So my topic is, I think, around the same, because my daughter is at age, she's 8 years old. And then I think that between me and my husband, if we see, then she's more comfortable talking to her father. And that is something kind of, bothers me at times, because I do everything, but then I am always seen as a strict parent. So I sometimes think that does it have something to do with my communication style? Because if we see, then my husband is more strict, but then I come across as a person who is as a parent who is very strict. So I sometimes think, does it, is there any problem with my communication? So I thought this will be a good topic that can help me.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing that, Priyanka. So Priyanka, given what you just shared, what's happening for you that kind of makes this something that you want to focus on? What's kind of happening that you're noticing this as something you want to work on?
So, as mother, you will always want that, at least I want that my daughter should come and share things with me first. But then it happens that it first goes to my husband, then it goes to my sister, then all family members, and then maybe I'm the fourth or fifth person in family to know that what is happening, or this also happened. She's thinking this way. And then when I ask her that why didn't you share this with me? The answer is, because you are busy with work, because you don't have time, because you will get angry. So so this is what that I sometimes I feel that, how is she getting this kind of perception? Am I communicating this way? I am trying to spend time, but so what is it that is there something to do with my communication? So that's the reason, I want her to be coming to me first and share that these are the things. And I sometimes also notice how my husband communicates. So I feel that I'm more liberal one. I am kind of giving her more liberty. I support her in whatever she wants to do, but still, why this gap?
You got it. So, what would be a good outcome from our conversation that would help you,
Yeah.
get to the place where you feel comfortable and feel satisfied in how this relationship and communication with daughter is happening?
Maybe if I understand if is there really a problem with my communication, and if yes, because I am kind of convinced that it is, then how can I improve on that, so that that kind of
Mm,
rapport is built.
mm, mm, mm. And what makes it really, I know you said that you want to um, have that bond with your daughter. You don't want to be the fourth person to be the one that she comes to. Anything else that makes it really important so that you have this bond and relationship with your daughter?
Yeah, because to just give you a background, we are from defense background. So my husband is mostly sailing and all. We are from Indian Navy, so he keeps sailing and also she's the one. I think she's with me most of the time. So I don't want those days when her father is not around. He is, sailing for work and all, and she has something in her mind which she is not comfortable sharing with me. Then that should not affect her. So nothing to do that.
Mm,
She should to feel good factor, no, but also as she's growing, I want her to share everything with me, so that even when her father is not around for work or something is gone out, then she has somebody to share with. But right now I don't get that feel.
mm,
So that's the reason for
mm,
her.
mm,
Everything, like now she's going to school, she's meeting classmates, she's in growing stage, right? And this is the time
mm,
when they have lots to share. So yeah, I want her to, because she's spending maximum time with me.
mm, mm. So almost for her sake, you want her to be able to come to you so that she doesn't hold anything waiting for her dad to come back, and that she
Correct,
shares
correct.
it with you as and when she can.
Yes.
Okay, got that. So, Priyanka, what do you think we need to address in our conversation that would help you get that kind of, uh, you know, uh, increase your awareness about what's happening and make those changes that you talked about?
Uh, like as I said, that I'm kind of convinced that yes, there is some problem with my communication. So how can I
Mm,
communicate so that the gap which is kind of built, the
mm,
gap is not there, and we have that trust factor. The trust can be more intensified. So yeah, how to build that trust more
okay, okay.
by working on my
So
communication.
how to build?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So how to build that trust more and while working on your commission. So Priyanka, what would you say trust between your daughter and you should look like?
Trust, like yeah, that she should not have any fear in her mind when she's sharing anything with me. That is the
Mm,
trust. She should have this confidence that my mom will understand. But then presently maybe she has a confidence, she's convinced that if she tells me something which she has done wrong, then maybe I will kind of get angry, or
mm,
maybe my reaction will be something which she doesn't like. So maybe
mm,
that is a thing. So I want that trust wherein blindly she comes and tells me that this is what it has happened, I have done something wrong, or even if not wrong, I have achieved something, or I've failed somewhere. Like if she has to share her marks and all and she's scored less, she's kind of scared to share this with me. She will tell my family members that, please can you tell mama that this is what I have done, next time I will not do that, the
mm,
reason and all. And when she
mm,
comes to me, she'll come with the explanation, this happened, please don't get angry. uh, uh, I will work hard next time. So then I feel that, but I never get angry. Then but she is getting that feel. So maybe, uh, yeah, there is some problem with communication. So I want the trust. How does the trust look like? That she should not have any fear or any question in her
mm.
mind when it comes to sharing anything with me.
Okay, okay. So you said that somewhere, even though you feel that she's not getting angry, somewhere she's getting that sense. What do you think she's seeing when you communicate with her?
What he's seeing? Maybe at times my reaction or response to what she says, like in past, maybe whenever she has come to me, I've told her that I'm busy right now, you will talk later, and then later maybe I forget or something, or maybe I have reacted in a way that has given her the feel that I'm not okay with this kind of behavior. In my mind, I have a reasoning for that, because I always feel that one parent need to be little disciplined, and everything cannot be as per her wish, right? One person needs to be disciplining her or do something which kind of take, which doesn't give her the feel that she's free to do whatever she wants to do. So maybe I have consciously taken this role, but then I'm not happy with this role.
So it may be a conscious thing, but then to become that parent that kind of keeps things in check, but that's kind of leading to her not being so comfortable in sharing because of that reaction, or the not having so much time. And I want to acknowledge, that it's important that that you believe that role that you have taken is an important one, and I want to acknowledge that. So how do you think you could achieve that kind of role and still be that mother that she can share anything with, and feel that mom's reaction is supportive of me?
Right now, what is coming in my mind is maybe kind of spending more time with her and understanding, asking her maybe to start treating her like an adult and asking her what does she expect in terms of time, what does she want from me, what is her expectations from me when it comes to her studies or playtime or something. So maybe just asking her what does she want, which I have never done. I mean, I tried doing at times, but then I see that she's been over pampered by the other side, which is my husband. So I feel that okay, then I need to be the strict one, and I need to be really going behind the rules and discipline and all. Yeah. So
So it's been conscious that you have been the strict one. So Priyanka, when you think of the open conversation you just talked about, right? How does it make you feel if you were to go back and have that kind of open conversation?
to tell you frankly, I've thought of it, but the only fear that comes in my mind is she has that kind of freedom to say whatever she wants to say to her dad, and whatever she says gets done. If I also start doing the same thing, uh, will she be taking advantage of this? Because I have seen this happening in past, that so maybe somewhere what I feel is, I joined a little late, but I heard that we as parent, mother and father, should work as team. So I think somewhere that thing with my husband, that we need to communicate the same thing. I just cannot be I cannot be seen as a parent who is very strict, and you cannot be seen as a very funny father who does everything for his daughter. So we need to have a balanced role. And also open communication with my daughter is something that is coming in my mind right now.
So kind of making this a partnership, so that
Yeah.
both get to be both kinds of parents.
Yeah.
So what needs to change, Priyanka? Since you've brought that up, what needs to change so that you can actually achieve that kind of relationship, and partnership?
I think what needs to change, one is uh, everything cannot be happening the same way. So something needs to be just left without thinking much. So I kind of think of future more, that disciplining will now help in future. But I think I should just let it be and just enjoy each and every moment, instead of thinking of kind of behaving in certain manner, just keeping future in mind. So I think that should change. That mindset of mine should change, focusing more on future and missing on the present moment, uh, of being like, if she comes to me and she says, can you just draw this for me, or with me? So I say that you have already done 2 hours of drawing, now it's time for you to study because of the exam. So I think in that scenario I can just tell her that, okay, you come, we will do this for half an hour and then we will study. So what should change is first mindset and my mindset, and second is the open communication, asking her, because whatever the way I'm communicating is basis what is right according to me, but then I should also ask her that what does she expect from me.
So asking her what she expects from you, but and also allowing that bit of fluidity, so that when she comes, you kind of give her what she needs, but also make sure certain things happen in a certain way. You said you need to change your mindset, Priyanka. What needs to happen so that that new mindset comes to you?
As I said, I'll not think much about future, and then plan. Everything cannot be planned, so I kind of try to plan everything. So all the relationships cannot be planned. Maybe how to uh, groom or condition my daughter, that cannot be planned. So sometimes some things which cannot be planned, I should not do that. So I think I will also be less stressed. Now if I see that she's not behaving in particular manner, then that stresses me out as well, and then the entire family, because then I tell my husband that because of you this is happening, or something like that, then
Mm,
it is kind of
mm,
not good for everyone. Yeah.
mm. So, Priyanka, you talked about the stresses and her, behavior in a particular manner and things like that. Now, where are some of those, I guess, measurements that you are having coming from?
Can you repeat this? I didn't get this question, sorry.
Yeah, so you said my daughter is not behaving in a particular manner. This particular manner,
Hmm.
where is that coming from? The measurement for that.
See, we see things, right? So it is not like that I want her to do this way, my way, not that, but then some things are just
Mm,
not acceptable. I feel that it's okay to they should decide, but uh, they cannot decide every time. And that is
mm,
when this thing comes, that every time when she tries to decide and she gets that support, and then
mm,
she sees that I am being the person who, or the parent who is saying no, wherein it is supported by her father. So then that thing comes that this is not right. I mean, this is not right. It's not like that I say everything is not right, but then certain things which
mm,
they are not mature enough to decide on that. So we as parents should,
mm,
if we feel that that is not acceptable, that is not acceptable. We cannot give everything to kids. uh, we should try our best, but giving everything also, but at the same time I think the way I communicate here, I am convinced, I'm sure that what I'm doing is correct. But then the
mm,
way
mm,
I communicate, my reaction, instead of maybe yelling at her and telling her direct no, maybe I should involve more in communication by making her understand why it is not good, or why are we doing this. So my
mm,
response, what is not acceptable, is I know that is correct, but for her betterment. uh, but
mm,
then
mm.
the way I tell her is not correct, is something I feel, and it
Okay.
is and open communication is something which kind of help this, I feel. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So maybe, staying to what you believe is right, but how you communicate is not, try and be more holistic, have her listened to, and then communicate to her. So, Priyanka, what have you kind of learned about yourself from our conversation so far?
See, before when we started, first of all, I had this question whether my communication is okay or not okay. But when I started speaking about it, I realized yes. I told also that yes, I'm convinced the way I react, the way I respond is not correct. That is communication only. And then two three things which I need to change my mindset. That if sometimes, even if after trying my best and I know what is best for her, still she is not doing that, let it be. She will learn her way. I should not kind of run behind that. And so being a little easy on myself too and being on her. So when I tell her something, it is not that is affecting her, but affecting me. So kind of just go with the flow, being a little easy. And open communication is something, I think this is the age wherein I should start spending more time communicating. What does she expect? What is her expectation from me as parent? What is it that will kind of help her build that trust more?
Right. So really changing mindset, getting to understand what she wants from you as a parent, and letting things be wherever wherever possible for you. So Priyanka, coming out of today's conversation, what actions are you going to take when you get back to your home, your daughter, your husband?
Yeah, I'm going to communicate, talk to both of them, and ask my husband also that, you know, we need to be balanced. We need to be taking both the roles. He also need to be strict at times. If he's out, doesn't mean mostly not at home, doesn't give him that liberty to be more liberal or be that parent who is very good with his child. And at the same time, I also need to be communicating more with her, spending more time with her. So definitely I am going to do that consciously now. Take out time with her, at least talk to her half an hour, do some activity with her, uh, consciously now, because this I have been thinking but I have not been doing. So now I'll have to put conscious effort for this. And I think that will help. Open communication is something, and she loves to talk. I always tell her, please, I don't have time right now. So I think I'll have to tell her that we are talking. So,
Okay, so making that time and really, spending time and having engagements with her. Priyanka, by when? Today we're the 25th. When will you make some of these things happen?
maybe soon after the session, at least I get try to spend 1 hour with her, maybe watch movie or maybe do something which she likes, some activity. She's turning 8, and I feel really bad to say that I have never sat with her and done a drawing or something. Maybe for studies I've helped, but she's always interested in drawing and all, and I like, okay, draw on your own. So something, getting involved in something she likes, doing those activities. Not that I don't do activity, but activities that she likes. Maybe doing those activities will help. Yeah. So I'm going to start from today itself.
Okay, wonderful. So thank you, Priyanka. Would this be a great place to wrap up our conversation?
Yes, yes. It was a great help and great
Okay, and
session.
thank you, and thank you for volunteering once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. That was an amazing demonstration of vulnerability and courage. Thank you so much for taking that on, and all the best to you with your daughter.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So, any comments you have, Bhavani, before I bring the others in about how we can link this demo and while I'm bringing them in fact?
Yeah, so I think my comment is it's back to self-awareness as a parent. All that we've spoken about today has been about various stages of our children and some good practices to have with them throughout those stages, and how coaching can really help, regardless of what stage a parent-child relationship is at. Coaching can always help with increasing self-awareness, and that self-awareness itself is half the battle won. It's a great starting point to what next, and what changes can happen and can be made, and that changes will increase self-awareness again about what worked and what didn't, and so on and so forth. So I think that's how I see a thorough integration between coaching as a support for parents to become better at communicating and listening with empathy. Rekha.
I can see that, Bhavani, you have gone to a different level of energy. So I guess that is the impact of coaching on the coach, right?
Yes, indeed. I'm thinking I need to go and do some of the things that Priyanka has also committed to do.
Right. Yes, lovely space of learning. So I'm just going to look at some questions that have come, and there are really interesting questions, and some are related to coaching and some not. So I'm just going to address them to respective people. So there is a question about coaching parents and coaching youngsters and the tricky part of it. So the tricky part of coaching parents is that there is always a third person that we are referring to or talking in reference to. How to then keep the focus on the coachee, who's the parent, instead of getting sidetracked to thinking, assuming things on the child's behalf. And then there is a vice versa question to that. So I guess if you answer this, the answer to the other one would happen. Bhavani, over to you.
Okay, so I think a lot of coaching conversations, Rekha, whether parent, child, parent, have always a third party most in the conversation, and I think the focus is it's all about what the coachee's experience, feelings, reflections, perceptions, right? It's all about that. And as a coach, as long as we keep bringing it back to not what the kid's feeling, not what the kid's thinking, but what the parent feels, maybe what the parent feels the kid is thinking and seeing. That's okay, because it's still about the parent. But we can't start assuming and trying to bring in the child's perspective into the conversation. It is what the parent is thinking and feeling about the situation with the child. As long as we keep that focus, I think the coaching can be successful with the parent as the coachee or the child as the coachee, so as it should be.
Yeah, nice. So there's a related question which says that we normally bring ourselves to any relationship, even that of a parent, based on our own experiences. How do we pivot, keeping what is needed in the moment from a child's point of view? Anyone else wants to take it?
I would welcome Satish or Afat. Yeah, please go ahead.
Afat, you're on mute. Yeah.
No, I'm saying Satish should take that.
So actually, I was listening to the coaching, and very interestingly, I was just thinking, because somehow in my head now I have a switch which I have kind of turned on or whatever. But I'm always saying is I know that like there should be somebody who's representing the child. If there was in that conversation, if I was representing the child, okay, not defending them, but like for example, if I was possible to spend like a day or two with the child, maybe playing or just doing some stuff or just observing, then I would be able to come in the conversation and also give you input saying, actually this is what she's saying. Because when Priyanka was talking about her daughter, I was getting a picture of the daughter, but still I feel like it is coming from through a channel, through her own sense of. So if there was a possibility, and I think that is also when this question you asked, I was just saying that is it possible for us to have that switch in our head? Most of the times I think pivot is a good word, but we don't turn off that switch when we deal with different peoples in our lives, whether it is office and then suddenly we come in over there. Is it possible to practice that switch all the time? And I think consciously what is happening is when you said self-awareness, if I can keep on looking at myself and observing myself, I think and how am I reacting, why am I getting so upset? Because she's saying that I'm a bad father, I'm a bad parent, why what this thing is. So it is always, I realize it is just about me. And if I switch off that and I'm saying, okay, now this is a different person, I don't have to be a professional over here. And I think that with practice, I think that is what, there is no switch. We have to just practice it.
Yeah, so true, right? I mean, we have to acknowledge our own humanity as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So, another question which is interesting is how to handle scenarios where your value system as a parent is different from the value system of a teenager. Should we try to maybe find a common ground? I can see Satish laughing there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who wants to take this one?
Bhavani will be best.
um Takes a lot of willpower, first of all, Rekha, to operate where the value systems are different. But I think, at the end of the day, remembering that what you want best is for your child to evolve as to be a full human being in their own right. I think if you remember that, then allowing them to develop their value system to their fullest is actually the success story that we all want in our relationships with our children. So somewhere our emotions and our stresses and all kind of bring our value system and say do this, do that, etc. Because we want a certain kind of outcome that. But if we pause and remember that they are evolving into adults of their own right with their own value system, and that's what's best for them, then I think it's one way of managing that situation. And For me, I have a living example with my 15-year-old who is complete academically different, who wants to do his own thing, and I'm like, just remember how you were when you were 15, Bhavani, and it will be fine. That's my that's my
Yeah.
I was developing. I always try to do that. If I was the kind of things I did when I was 15 and I turned out okay, then my son will be okay. That was and so let him develop his own system. That's the logic that I'm going with.
Yeah.
So, Bhavani, so just to add to that, so when we are working with children also, and part of the education system we come for, there is this term that we use is loving authority. Because somehow we think authority has to be firm, yes, but loving. Authority is about saying is knowing the boundaries. So Priyanka also said we cannot let our children do everything. Yes, we are facilitating the space, but like for example, if it is about television, there have to be some things about getting media, how much it has to be, and you have to draw the line and hold firm to it, not to confuse the child. Also, I realize like that there's a need to be a friend of your child, which I feel this is some modern maybe advertising or even movies have created this thing. But you have a different relationship, you don't have to be the friend. So loving authority always roots me back, it brings me back. And I realize like Bhavani, I think till the age of 35 I hated my parents. Okay, I really hated my parents, and I was like, they are idiots. They don't know what they're doing is. But I think, and this is no offense to anybody, and I have told it to my parents also and my father, and I'm so glad, we had that conversation and I got to see him before he left us. Okay. But I think that, sooner or later, you will start to realize, that why they did what they did. You might not realize it, you will, and all of us. So if you're trying to please the child, I think you're doing a losing battle, because they are going to anyways hate you. And there's going to be a time when they're going to realize, like me, ki, hey, ye to, I have so much to learn. This guy was next level, this woman was next level. And that is what I am doing right now. And I'm finding my own space, acknowledging what they did for what they did, like how, but not validating all of it, like how what effort was sharing. Yeah, but it's, don't try to
Yeah.
be your child's friend, be your loving authority. Yeah.
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 Yeah, if I can pick
Very
from what
well.
Satish was talking about, it really reminds me about the river. The river, one, it never is in a linear fashion. There's no river that goes in a straight line. There's always going to be ups and turns around it. But there's
Mhm.
always a boundary to the river. And everything in nature also has a boundary, starting from the cell, which has a cell boundary and the cell membrane, to the solar system that have its own rules and rules of the way they follow, the certain kind of discipline that it follows. Now, when that's not there, the boundary, safety is no more there. And children grow within the guidance of being the lighthouse. Being the lighthouse means that the lighthouse never really saves the boat that's kind of go rocking away. All it does is beams the light, right? You're just beaming your light. And the boat then decides to, oh, that's the light. I need to recalibrate myself to get there, to anchor myself. And that's really the role of what a parent is, you know. And to become that lighthouse, you will need to allow a lot of your own value systems to differentiate between what truly forms the value system vis-a-vis what we think are um, overshadowing on top of it. It's really not the value system. The value systems are same for everybody. What is it? It's about being able to connect with other people, being kind to each other, being the good person that they need to be. When I say good person, I'm talking about allowing another person to function well in life, right, in their own rights, being bringing in compassion and kindness. But when that confuses between that versus what you're imposing your images on, that's when the confusion begins there. So the value systems are not ever different from what I have understood so far. It's all the same, except how we look at it and what we have built on top of it. And our process to become the true guiding beam lights is to let go of those layers and just be true lighthouses of our life.
Let the light shine. Yeah.
Yeah, let
Yeah,
the light shine. I
let the
mean, as
light
long as that
shine.
shines, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what? This is so aligned with what coaching is, right? Coaches, as coaches, also our job is to just shine the light. That's all.
Yeah.
So I think this is also very related to another question which is here, where it says that do we as parents really know what is best for our children, or do we just project ourselves on them?
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is quite what you have
Yeah.
been sharing, right?
But not your
Yeah.
true self, actually, Rekha. If you look at it, it's really not your true self that you're beaming out there. You know, it is about what you have become. And this relates to one of the questions that someone has asked there, which talks about the allergies and anxiety. And it seems to be running in the family. And he believes that he or she is believing that's inherited from one of the parent. And then how can I deal with this as it impacting my life now? Because the strong feeling is that there's psychosomatic factors playing there. Now this I want to link in with how the body keeps a score. You know, I work with the body all the time, so i I can see that the body has its own consciousness just as we have, and all it's looking for is the similar way of reflection, listening, deep listening, when the body has its own capacity and intelligence to kind of restore itself very beautifully. And all it requires is that beaming light again. It's no different. What our heart feels is exactly what our body, entire body requires. Every cell requires acknowledgement. And then it knows how to work as a team in the body to be in the state of health. So during the first 7 years of life, it's mostly about how the parents have played a role to make you to reflect upon who we are truly, which you already are. It's not something that you become. You already are pure, innocent, whole, and complete. You're already that from birth, from before birth. Now, their sense of self defines through how your parents have been through the first 7 years of life. Now, through that, if I have taken an impression that I'm not good enough, or whatever I do is no good, which is often what even a 50-year-old or an 80-year-old person who has maybe cancer is only talking about exactly the same thing. There's no difference. No matter how much they achieve in life, the only thing that comes back to when they're dealing with challenges in life, especially with health issues, is I'm not good enough. That's because we are reflecting upon what we felt about ourselves, because parents have the duty to allow them to see their image of who they truly are, which sometimes we miss in life as parents because we are also growing, right? We tend to. But the beauty is that health is present in the moment, and any given moment is the spurt of the seed that you can start your health from. It does not have to worry about the scores or the baggages that we have behind us, but just to know that you will always remain the pure, the innocent, and the whole and complete person throughout your lifetime. And that corrects how we approach life and also what others look at us as. And health is restored because intelligence of the body is really marvelous that way.
Such a beautiful connection, Ifat, you have given us and so much of hope over there, right? That we can plant the seed at any time and have it grow. So this has been an awesome session, and we are just coming to the close. So I'm sorry, I will not be able to take more questions. So I just want to thank Ifat, Satish, and Bhavani. I really don't know how these 90 minutes went by. It's been a beautiful, eye-opening thing. I never thought that, after my journey as a coach, that I'll have so many revelations happening about life and about myself. So it's been very enriching, and I'm sure it was so for everyone else. The whole thing about starting early and the need to have to be heard, seen, the boundaries, the value system evolving, and the safety and the trust factor. I think it's been a wonderful session. Thank you so much. And thank you once again, Priyanka, for really taking the courage and being vulnerable and sharing your life with us. So thank you. And thank you all the participants over here for making our conversation richer by all your beautiful comments and thought-provoking questions that brought out so many answers. Thank you and see you soon.
Thank you. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you very much.